Alright, grade 10, this is the prime number 1. Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly because I have to be somewhere in half an hour. Okay, that's actually a lot of time. Alright, so first of all, we need a prime number from the user. Alright, so I'm going to store that in iPrimeTest. Right, I'm going to use input box, so iPrime test, and I'm going to use a input box. The name of the input box will be num. The instruction will be enter number, and then an empty set of quotes. Right, remember you have to go string to int. Okay, cool, there we have our number. Now, prime number has 2 factors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all the factors of this number that they just gave us. Alright, so I'm going to use a loop. For I is equal to 1 to this number that the user types in the box. Okay, for loop gets a begin and an end. Okay, now how do I test if this I is a factor of this number? The use if statement. So if iPrimeTest mod I is equal to 0. Alright. I didn't actually need to put this in between brackets, guys. Why? It's because there's no and, it's just one condition. Okay, if statement gets a begin and an end. Right, so what am I doing now? If this if statement is true, in other words, I goes perfectly into iPrimeTest. So I is a factor of iPrimeTest. What should I do? Remember, if iPrimeTest has 2 factors, it means it is a prime number. So I just need to keep count of how many factors I find. And then at the end, I ask the question, if there are 2 factors, this number is a prime number. So if this if statement is true, and I is a factor, I'm just going to keep count. Luckily, I've got a variable here called iFactorCount, and I'm just going to increase it. But whenever you use inc, it needs to have a initial value. Right, how many factors do we have initially, guys? We've got no factors, so it will increase it from 0. Good. So what will happen here is I will start at 1. Let's say you enter in the number 3 in your input box, so it's 1, 2, 3. First time we get in here, I is equal to 1, so if 3 mod 1 equals 0, yes, inc iFactorCount becomes 1. I becomes 2. If 3 mod 2 is equal to 0, that's not true. This line won't run. We're safe. iFactorCount is still 1. Lastly, I becomes 3. 3 mod 3, yes, that's happy. And we increase this to 2. And your for loop ends because I is now equal to 3. In the case where, yeah. Alright. And how many factors did we find? iFactorCount was 2. Oh, this happens to be a prime number. Alright, so now I just need to do one final test. I just need to say if iFactorCount is equal to 2, then it means we have found a prime number. Oh, what am I doing? iFactorCount. Okay, there we go. iFactorCount. Good. Alright, and then what we can do is I'm still going to use this mem display. Alright, begin, end, mem display, .lens.add, and then I'm going to say, for instance, 3 is a prime number. So what I'm saying first is the number that they've entered. It's iPrimeTest. I'm going to put it here. this is an integer. You can't put an integer in a memo without converting it to string. So this here, I'll say int to string, put it in brackets. So I'm changing this from integer to string. Cool. And then I need the words is a prime number. So I'm going to add some words. Is a prime number. Okay, I think that's going to do the trick, guys. Let's run this program. Why is it taking so long? Okay, prime number. Let's test 3. 3 is a prime number. Let's try another one. 6 is not a prime number, yeah? Oh, it doesn't do anything. Maybe we should add something that will say, ah, this is not a prime number. I want to test one more. What happens if it's 1? Oh, nothing happens. Right. Oh, not 1 divided by 1. Ah, because 1 divided by 1 is not. Oh, but the remainder is 0. So it will increase it to 1. Ah, because it won't be 2, yeah. Okay. Right, I am going to just make a provision for the fact that ifactor count won't always be 2. For instance, when I typed in 6, 6 has got more than 2 factors. It'll go 1, 2, 3, and 6, right? 4 factors. So in other words, if this if statement is not true, it must come to the else, and we'll have a different display. Namely, this number is not a prime number. Let's test it. Right, let's go with 7. That is a prime number. And let's go with 4. 4 is not a prime number. Okay, cool beans. Right, guys. Cheese.